Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, a smug Karen demands an army veteran takes off his prosthetic claiming that he is a fraud. Let's dive right into the video. So I joined the army right out of high school since I did not think I had the grades or prospects for college. Training was rough, but I made it through. I was on 2 tours, the later one being on the front lines. The full details are not important to this story, but I did lose my left leg, just below the knee in the line of duty. It is something that I'm still coming to terms with nearly 5 years later. Even with the loss of my leg, I've been trying to keep positive. I was fitted with a prosthetic shortly after my injury, so I've gotten used to walking around with my prosthetic. And by the way, I do need a cane for additional assistance from time to time after a good amount of practice. For a long time I wore long pants to cover up the prosthetic even when it was boiling hot outside, but I was slowly working up to capri and shorter pants as the years went on. Now I've got no issues heading out in public with shorts on, even if I get an odd look or two. I'm proud of the progress I've made. Now onto what happened though. So there's a small coffee shop that I like to visit every Saturday. It is not very busy, so it's usually quiet, and I see it as a nice place to get a pep in my step for the beginning of the weekend. The staff is friendly, the weather was warm, so I was wearing shorts with my leg in full view for anyone to comment on, but the 3 other people in the shop were regulars like me and did not make a fuss. I ordered a coffee and a blueberry muffin and sat down at one of the corner tables to enjoy my food. 2 minutes later, a woman bursts into the shop. I don't recognize her as someone who comes in regularly, but she starts talking like she owns the place. The shop is not small, but with how loud she is speaking, it is easy to hear everything she is saying. She demands a blueberry muffin, and the cashier politely explains that they just ran out of it and would need time to make another batch. The woman, I'm just gonna call her Karen because that's exactly what she was acting like, wanted to know who had the last one, and the cashier gestured to me. Karen's eyes met mine and then her gaze moved down to my leg. Karen, how dare you? Me, excuse me? Karen, you think you're slick or something? The fact that you're flaunting that poor excuse for a pretend leg shows that you're just asking for attention. Me, ma'am, I can assure you that I needed to walk. Karen, I'm sure you can just walk fine without it. At this point, her voice is still carrying through the shop and the rest of the regulars are staring at us. I am embarrassed and wanted to say something that would hopefully get her to stop talking to me, so I decided to just tell her the full truth. Me, ma'am, my leg is missing below the knee. I need this prosthetic to walk. Karen, of course it is. Next thing you will tell me is that you lost it in the war. I could see that she was looking at the shirt I had on, which was a gift from my unit. It had my unit number, the base name I was originally stationed at, and my full title on the back. I like to wear it out because I want people to know that I feel proud to have served my country, and it sometimes provides enough of an explanation for why I have a prosthetic leg. I watched her lips pull into a frown. Karen, you're stealing valor from the men and women who fought for our country. You're wearing that shirt and pretending not to be able to walk just so you can have the special treatment that veterans get. Me, but ma'am, I'm a veteran. Karen, prove it. And by the way, Ripe Stars, that veteran should have told Karen to prove that she's actually a human being. I'm not sure if she would have been able to. Anyway, you said your leg is missing, then show it to me. At this point, I was mortified that I couldn't even think of anything more to say. Apparently, Karen took my silence as something else. Before I could even move away, she approached my table and grabbed onto my prosthetic. And the way that it is set up is that there's multiple straps attached high up on my thigh so that my leg won't fall off randomly, so when she pulls it feels like she's attempting to pull my entire leg off. I remember zoning out for a moment, the situation just taking its time to fully register in my head. When Karen pulled at my leg again, my right leg moved on instinct, catching her legs as I kicked out with my foot in an attempt to get her off me. She buckled and knocked her head against a neighboring table on the way down to the floor, letting go of my prosthetic as she lost her balance. She was out cold. I looked around and saw that some of the patrons of the shop were recording on their phones. The cashier at the register had a phone to her ear and I could hear her asking for an ambulance. I sat there for a good minute just trying to get my bearings back. I knew at the time that I probably caused Karen some damage, but I was just defending myself. I figured if there was an ambulance coming, then some police officers would be too. The cashier came over to me after her call and told me that she immediately dialed 911 when Karen went for my leg. She made sure I was okay to stay where I was until the authorities came and sat and talked with me to calm me down. I did not realize how shaken up I was until after everything, one of the other workers checked on Karen just to make sure she was alright, and she regained consciousness just as the ambulance and police arrived. Of course, as soon as the cops walked in the door, Karen immediately started screaming that I had attacked her unprompted. She held where she hit her head, claiming she had a concussion because of me. The officers directed her to one of the EMTs that came in with them, and while one officer went to one side of the restaurant with them, the other came over to me to ask what actually happened. I told the truth, the cashier holding my hand the whole time to keep me calm. I offered the officer my wallet to show him my veteran ID card, still have a physical copy even though they are all digital nowadays, just so he knew that I was telling the truth. The officer understood and thanked me for my service and apologized that someone had done something so horrible to me. Karen decided to chime in that my card had to be fake, there was no way I was a veteran. The officer said that he could remove her from the premises, but if she did attack me first, he would want to see if any of the witnesses corroborated my story. The cashier invited him and the other officer to see the security tapes from the coffee shop's cameras, and the patrons showed that they had recorded the incident on their phones. Karen was quiet at that point, and the police said that they would be going with her to the hospital in order to arrest her for assault. The EMT escorted her out onto a stretcher to be taken to the hospital, and one of the officers hung back to ask me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes, because even before the weeks leading up to the trial, her attack affected me greatly. I got a lawyer the next day, and while I waited for my day in court, I started having nightmares. I dreamt of the day I lost my leg, and instead of experiencing that event again, it was like it merged with Karen trying to rip off my prosthetic. I could feel how tight the straps were against my thigh, how much the area beneath my knee hurt. I would wake up sweating, unsure of where I was for a few moments, and had to find something to help me calm down. I ended up having to see a therapist about it, which I was embarrassed about at first, but the therapist I was set up with helped me come up with ways to cope with this new fear and anxiety I had after I was attacked. My lawyer was amazing and made sure that she took care of everything for the case. She did ask me if I wanted to settle this out of court, but apparently Karen wanted her side of the story to be heard in a court of law. The trial came and Karen pleaded not guilty. At first I was worried, but my lawyer assured me that everything was in my favor. Videos from the attack were shown, both from security cameras and from witness phones. Karen gave her side of the story, embellishing on all of the details, so it made it seem that I'd been the one to get violent first. I was asked to speak and recount what occurred, and using the techniques my therapist taught me, I was able to keep my composure throughout my testimony. The jury did not take too long to decide and found Karen guilty on all charges, and she got in huge trouble. Never mess with a veteran. And yeah, Ripe Stars, honestly, what is it with Karens hating veterans so much? I really don't know any other group in society that despises people this much. Either way, the next one is titled I 35 male cheated on my wife 36 female. And if you've watched until here, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we are super close to 130,000 subscribers, which I would love to reach. Thank you so much. I know I'm aware of my faults, I know I screwed up, she and I had something beautiful, she is still the love of my life, we were together for 10 years, 2 years dating and 8 married, but I made a huge mistake and cheated on her. It was just once, just one damn time. Somehow she found out, I never knew how because I haven't been able to talk to her since then. I guess she found something on my phone. I came home that afternoon as usual and everything felt weird, the house felt emptier, and I quickly realized that her things were gone. I panicked, I started calling her over and over, but her phone did not even ring. Suddenly, I saw some papers on the table. She was divorcing me. Under the divorce papers there was a note that said, "That is what you do with cheaters." That was the last thing I got from her 2 years ago now. Of course, I called the contact information for her lawyer, who has been the only bridge between us, but he just told me that he was her legal representative and that she did not want to see me. I thought, I got angry, but in the end her lawyer just told me that it would be better if I got my own lawyer. Well, I did not want to, and I absolutely refused to accept that 10 years of relationship would end like this. I know I have failed, but I always wanted to fix it. I know that if she gave me the chance, I could make that sweet and special girl I met 10 years ago fall in love with me again. I know that I can make her forgive me. After all, many couples go through similar things and get over it. Why can't we be one more couple in that statistic? Why, after 8 years of marriage, am I thrown away like garbage for a mistake? I don't deserve so much indifference. I haven't been able to see her or even hear her voice in 2 years. 2 years of not being able to see or talk to the person you love the most is too much of a punishment. This situation has destroyed me emotionally, mentally, and even physically. I ended up consuming an unhealthy amount of alcohol, weeks of barely eating, not sleeping. I was a zombie for months. I was just functioning on automatic. I wanted to die, but I couldn't let myself die because I always held onto the hope that she would come back to me. My therapist says it's really hard when you cannot get closure from a relationship because your mind cannot process that the relationship is over, so you're always thinking that person will knock on the door or that you will wake up from sleep and they'll be there by your side. The divorce was finalized over a year ago, and I'll be honest, I didn't make it easy. I didn't want to get divorced, and I still don't understand how we can be divorced. I asked for couples therapy, but she refused. I know from my lawyer that her lawyer advised her to go at least once or twice, but she refused. It took quite a while, but finally the divorce happened. I cannot even describe the feeling. I felt and still feel like if a piece of me had been cut out. I know I hurt her, I know I failed, but I think we all deserve a second chance. When I couldn't take the pain anymore, I decided to start therapy. My therapist doesn't give me advice to get her back, he only focuses on me moving on with my life, encouraging me to meet new people and go out on dates, but I don't want to. At this point, I'm not even interested in intercourse anymore. And well, a few days ago something happened that completely shattered me. I was having a few beers with my friend at my house, let's call him Nick. We were both pretty drunk and I started talking about my wife. And he said to me, "You should put more effort into getting over her. She's over you and is happy having a life away from you. You should do the same. You cannot live in this self-pity all your life." Something in his words hit me, but not in the way he expected. He spoke with a lot of confidence that my wife is over me and is happy now. How does he even know that? At this point I got angry and started pressuring him to talk. He refused though, and I pressed as hard as I could. I cried, I begged him to tell me if he knew something. I needed to know something about her. Until he finally told me his wife has been in contact with my wife for the last year. They were great friends, and I remember Sabrina, my friend's wife, being very sad about losing contact with my wife. The thing is that my wife went to live in Norway, got married to a guy there, and is about 7 months pregnant. I felt like dying. I literally felt like dying with this information. How could she do this to me? How could it be that while I was crying, getting drunk, missing her and wanting to die every day, she was happily on the other side of the world getting married, screwing and getting pregnant by another guy? How could it be that she didn't have a child with me in many years, to the point that I thought she was infertile, but she got pregnant by this new guy so easily? Where did this guy come from? And by the way, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I've never seen a Reddit post with so many red flags. Anyway, I got no answers for absolutely anything, and I feel like I cannot go on with my life without these answers. The only thing I can think of is that she had revenge intercourse with the first Norwegian guy she came across and got pregnant and decided to keep the baby. Maybe she got married because she wanted to stay in that country legally, and I guess like in most countries, getting married is a good option for that. I don't know, but these thoughts are killing me. I refuse to think that she's in love with him. I need to contact her, I need to talk to her, I need to know what's going on because she acts like our 10-year history, an 8-year marriage is nothing to her. I need advice on how to act. I feel the impulse of travel to where she is and look for her, but how could I do that? I don't know what city she is in, I don't know where she lives, I don't have a number to contact her, she closed her social media, her family is small, they don't live in the same country as me, and all of them blocked me. I'm totally lost, I don't know what to do at this point. I still want her back, and yes, even pregnant. I feel like if this is a nightmare and I need to wake up now. Update to the story, these days have been very strange at times, I feel numb and at others desperate. So a lot of things have happened. I want to start by answering something and then I will update. Some people asked, why Norway? I don't know exactly, but she is a polyglot, she speaks 6 languages, many of these languages are connected to cultures that she always liked, and Norwegian is just one of them. She has always been interested in Norwegian culture, she has been there before, but she's also interested in other cultures and speaks other languages, so for me, that was never an indicator that she might have gone to this country. Regarding the update, the first thing I will say is that the post reached some people in my circle. Sabrina's sister is on Reddit, she knows the story and realized it was me. She told Sabrina, and Sabrina is angry at Nick for revealing information. Nick is angry at me for posting on Reddit because he said I pressured him to talk. I'm angry at both of them for being two a-holes who watched me suffer for 2 years and decided not to help me. They did not care about my marriage, why should I care about their marriage? So Sabrina could have given me my ex phone number a long time ago, but she decided to prioritize her friendship with my ex instead of helping two friends mend their marriage. Meanwhile, no one cared about my feelings. I'm done with them at this point. Regarding my ex-wife though, I've been thinking a lot. She cannot just disappear. I convinced myself that if I searched hard enough, I could find something related to her. I follow some of her relatives from a fake Instagram account, but I never found anything related to her. I searched a lot and really a lot and found a name that I had seen before, but that had not caught my attention until then. It was a lady with a name that's not typical in the US or my wife's country. FYI, she is not American and a very strange last name. I went to her Instagram profile and she had no picture or anything, just a small profile picture that you can barely see. I decided to look her up on Facebook and found the same lady with the same profile picture, only her Facebook profile is quite open and she is indeed a lady from Norway. I checked everything I could on this profile. I was convinced that it had something to do with my wife. How else would a relative of hers have this woman in their friends list? I saw a lot of pictures, people, plants, mountains, gardens, lakes, flowers, typical things that an older lady posts, until I came across a picture where my ex was dressed as a bride hugging a guy. I had to translate the text. The lady was congratulating her son on his wedding. There were a few more pictures, not many, and there were even some members of my ex's family in the wedding picture. The dates of the pictures were from a year ago. A year ago she married this guy. I don't understand, how could it happen so fast? When did she meet him? I honestly thought she got married after she got pregnant, not before, and this baffles me even more now. After that I found another picture. It was a group picture and she was far away, but of course I recognized her. The same guy was with his hands on her shoulders hugging her. This picture was from 2023. To be clear, she left in May 2022. How is she with someone in February 2023? Only 9 months and she's already in a stable enough relationship that he has introduced her to his family? What the hell is going on here? I feel like I have even more questions in my head now. I know I should not be upset, but I am. I know I lost her because I was an idiot, but it's hard to get this feeling out of my head right now. Anyways, for those who imagined this fantasy that my ex is with some kind of Norwegian Chris Hemsworth, well, let me tell you, it's not like that. This guy is too tall, too blonde, too pale, hair too long, and kind of chunky to be honest. He looks more like the old cartoon of Vikings and is definitely not a Chris Hemsworth. I managed to find his FB profile, but he has almost nothing there. His profile says he is an engineer who wears metal band t-shirts at 38. I don't know how to take this because I'm an engineer myself, just in a different field. Why would she look for a man with the same profession as me? My wife has always liked heavy metal, which I always found nasty, but I never complained. After all, your partner does not have to have the same musical taste as you. I mention this because maybe that was the way they connected and she used to connect easily with people who liked the same type of music as her. I don't know, but I honestly look at it and think, where did she get this guy from? I mean, she can definitely do better than this. The pregnancy thing still messes with my head. I try not to think about it. I cannot understand it. I'm not infertile like the comments suggest. I've been to the doctor and I know I'm not. But damn, it kills me to think that she's going to have another man's child. I don't get it. I feel this is beyond anything I ever imagined, and no, I'm not going to Norway. I'm not going to try to contact her. I still want to see her and talk to her though, but I obviously cannot force her to do that. I have too much to deal with right now and too much to talk about in therapy. If by any chance this post reaches my ex, I want you to know that I still love you. You know where to contact me. If by any chance this post reaches the new dude, I want you to know the only reason you have a chance with this woman is because a big idiot halfway across the world completely ruined it. You most probably met a woman who was probably very broken from her divorce and you took advantage of her situation and trapped her with a baby. You don't know how to play fair. Sabrina and Nick, F you. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I am absolutely speechless that this post was so highly rated on Reddit. This was almost like reading a fever dream or something. Let me know in the comments what you think about this crazy story. The next one is titled, Yep, I must totally be the landlord, dude. My neighbors were moving out of the house they had been renting next to me for the last 2 years, and while I was sad to see them go, I completely understood that they were fed up with the condition of the house and the landlord's dismissiveness to their complaints. They took on far more home improvement and maintenance than they should have to be responsible for, some of which I helped them with as we are all friends. After they had vacated and the house was on the market, I was bombarded with all manners of questions from potential buyers and realtors whenever I was outside, usually in the vein of, "How recently was the roof replaced?" and questions about flooding. Mostly I was able to answer and did so pleasantly, mostly. This one realtor though, I will call him Ted because he looked like Ted Danson from The Good Place anyway. Ted catches me going out to check my mail one afternoon after a long night of taste testing my bourbon to make sure it was still good. Ted darts across the lawn to me and starts firing off some pretty rude questions, like, "Why didn't the previous tenants take care of this place? It's a real dump inside. Were they crackheads? Who installed that washing machine? Why did they leave it so dirty?" Okay, Ted, because I really needed this right now. But again, always try to be polite. I tell Ted, as far as I knew, no, the previous neighbors were not crackheads and they actually put in more than their fair share of the upkeep. Apparently, that was not sufficient for mighty Ted. "Well, what about the washing machine and the track lighting? Was that done by a professional?" At this point, I'm getting pretty close to being done with this whole affair. "I don't know, Ted. I've been living in this house over here and not the one you're trying to sell." "Ted, but surely you would know something about that." "No, dude. I'm not the landlord or the owner of that property, so yeah." "Well, did you at least see some contractors over here doing any work?" Me having completely lost it with this clown. Are we done? Can I go back inside my house now? I don't know. Ted looked pretty taken aback, but honestly, if he had a shred of self-awareness, I would not have yelled at him. His clients looked embarrassed, and who could blame them? Great way to meet the neighbors, by having your realtor badger them with dumb questions. And the next one is titled Divorce Housing Shenanigans. My ex and I married quickly. We were not too young, but we were young enough to be a little bit foolish. It was the best thing ever to happen to either of us, and it stayed that way, for me at least. She fell out of love with me, and the months-long process that led up to the divorce was excruciating. Luckily for her, her sister-in-law was the premier local family law divorce attorney for women, and of course her side of the case was handled pro bono. Neither of us really made much money, so I couldn't afford my own lawyer, and so I decided that it was just easier to cut my losses and give her the entire house that we bought together. I took some furniture that I brought to the marriage and anything that was obviously otherwise mine, but gave her literally everything else. I moved back in with my old roommate. Everything was fine for a few months, but old what's-her-name eventually wanted to meet and hash out some details. It turns out she was having a hard time paying the mortgage on her own and wanted me to pay half. Even though she wanted the divorce, her name was the only one on the title. I had given her my half of the rights to the house. I was flabbergasted. I suggested that she get a roommate, but she didn't want someone else living there. I told her that I couldn't afford my rent plus half of her mortgage. She mentioned that I had signed on as a co-guarantor of the mortgage, and I had to. She did not want to make it an unpleasant part of our divorce settlement. I left our meeting absolutely screwed up. But after a drink or several, I had a realization. It was a risky gamble, but I knew her well enough to hope that it would work. I had lunch with her again and agreed that I could pay half of the mortgage, but she would have to help me move back in. Moving in? Absolutely. I definitely couldn't afford to pay her and pay rent somewhere else, and there had never been any threat of violence between us, and my driver's license still listed our house as my legal residence, so at this point there was nothing stopping me from walking right back in the door and setting myself up in the guest bedroom. We could eventually work out a polite arrangement for evenings when I might bring home a new romantic interest, so would she want me to move in immediately and prorate this month or wait until next month? Her jaw flapped a few times and she said that she would have to consult with her lawyer, but that was the end of it. She dropped the issue and never asked for anything more. I still gave her a house just to get myself out from underneath her, but it was worth it. Park in our disabled spot, enjoy selling your home. So, my little sister, who is the sweetest girl in the world, is 12 years old but cannot walk or communicate. Her mental age is around 6 months. She obviously cannot attend a regular school, but since we live in a big city, there is a wonderful school for kids like her. Even though we don't own a car, since we don't need one, we got the city to put up signs in front of our house designating a 4-meter spot for wheelchair pickup and drop off for her school bus every morning and afternoon. The signs went up perhaps 2 years ago, and after the first week we never really had any issues since most of our neighbors are wonderful and totally understanding of our designated spot. For some context, we live in a perhaps poorer community, though we are well off. But in our 9 years here, we have had nothing but great interactions with everyone here. Sadly, the neighborhood is gentrifying and we are getting more self-centered people with their Mercedes-Benz or Audis honking while my sister gets loaded onto her school bus, which takes around 4 minutes but blocks our little street. This really pisses us off, as well as the other sane people that witness it. Naively, we thought this would be the extent of our unpleasant interactions. In September, we woke up like on any other Monday morning to find a shiny BMW parked in our disabled spot. It was not just partially in it, it was positioned perfectly to take up the entire spot. To make things worse, there were about a dozen open spots on the block, and it is not like they were all vacated that morning since we wake up at 6 AM. We were baffled. I had seen this car many times since last July, and it was definitely the same car since there are not many Burgundy sports cars in our neighborhood. It was usually parked about 20 meters south on our street, so we knew it belonged to a neighbor a few doors down. We did all the basics in this type of situation. We took a picture, took down the license plate and called the police to report it. The cops came by within the hour and wrote a big fat ticket. I believe it was for $700, but don't quote me on it. Anyways, it was a significant amount. At around noon, a smug, angry guy came knocking on my door. I had the day off from school and was home on my own. It was obvious that it was the owner of the car, so I made a quick decision to record the conversation, or screaming match, on my phone. I opened the door and before I could say a thing, the douche lays into me. I'm a 16-year-old guy and he is in his mid-40s, midlife crisis maybe. He accuses me of all things ranging from putting up those signs this morning to frame him to being racist. He was East Asian, I believe, but we have a really diverse community. He goes on to say that disabled spots should not even be a thing, that it is always empty, totally shooting himself in the foot based on his previous comments, that we should pay for his undeserved ticket, that it is not even an inconvenience since the spot next to his was free and my sister could just get on the bus from there. Once he finished, I said okay and shut the door on his furious face. He rang the doorbell another 5 times before storming off. To my satisfaction, the recording caught everything fairly clearly. In the evening, I told my parents what had happened and gave my dad a copy of the recording. We have a pretty tight-knit community for the most part, and there is a neighborhood Facebook group with around 3,000 members. My dad decided to post a summary of what had happened along with the recording and a picture of the car in our spot on the page. There was immediate uproar with people saying they would fight back or whatever. We were humbled by the feeling that our community was standing up for us, but we did not think anything would come of it. The next day I leave the house to go to school and walk by the guy's car, back in his normal spot, and notice that the front right tire was deflated. Upon closer inspection it was slashed. As I said, our community is tight-knit, but I cannot say I expected anything like this to happen. The guy must have seen the Facebook post because he did not come back to our house to complain or accuse us of anything. The following weeks were sweet. Whenever I saw him in public, people would go up to him and remind him that he was a crappy human being. A bit harsh in my opinion, but they were not my words. In November, his house had a for sale sign in the window. The house market had also gone down by a bit. I'm always kind of curious about how much houses similar to ours are selling for compared to how much we paid for ours in 2010, so I knew what he paid for it in July. Once I saw the for sale sign, I rushed home and checked the local house listings, and lo and behold, he was selling for $90,000 less than what it was going for in July. He really wanted to get out of our neighborhood. While his crime was not nearly worth $90K, I must say that I don't feel bad. Worst case scenario, he sells that obnoxious car of his, which would easily cover the lost money. Let's just say that we have not had a single car parked in my sister's spot since. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.